Good evening and welcome to Late Night with Lenette. I'm Lenette Peterson, your host. My guest this week is Merrimack's very own Ellen Cole.
Hi, Lenette.
But first, our Maggie moment. And this Maggie moment has me very concerned. Our governor has a problem. She has a huge problem with spending. I think the woman's a shopaholic. And unfortunately, the money she's using is the taxpayers' money. Last term, she was taking credit for the Bill O'Brien balanced budget.
Which she ran against.
Exactly. She was taking credit for the budget. She balanced the budget. Her and the Wicked Witch of the East, Terry Norelli, both took claim for the budget. This term, she's saying that was a reckless budget, and she's complaining that they're even getting worse with this radical budget that the Republicans are trying to pass now. It was quoted in the paper, I think it was the union leader was saying that her budget is going to be devastating to low income and the middle class. Now, here's the deal with the budget. Ellen, you work for me.
Yep.
I pay you $10 an hour. After a year, you think you've done a great job. You want to make $20 an hour.
Don't we all?
Yes. I say to you, well, I'm going to give you $15 an hour. Did you get a raise?
Yes.
Did you get a cut?
No, I did not.
Exactly.
But I know what I know
and
what she's
that's
saying.
what people are complaining about. They want a certain budget level. They're given an increase, not to the extent they want, and because they don't get what they want, it's a cut. It's not a cut, folks. Life is not fair. You don't always get what you want. That was our governor. Now for the state of the House. Folks, I do not understand what's going on in the State House. My 2 terms up there, Republicans signed a pledge. No increase, taxes and fees. Last term, we raised the gas tax.
That was 4 cents, was it?
4 cents. It was
Per gallon.
huge. Per gallon. Now, not even a full year later, Republicans are leading the way on a gas tax increase.
Is this dedicated to something, or is this for general revenue?
Good question. No one knows yet. Where did the money go that they've been making from this last increase that had to happen that July? Folks, this is wrong. If you're a Republican, vote Republican. You don't vote for taxes being raised on your constituents. We'll have more on this matter. Hello, Ellen.
Hello, Lenette.
And how are you?
I'm doing okay.
Ellen is a writer of a pro-life blog, Leaven for the Loaf. And she can be spotted in Concord, usually in the Legislative Office Building, speaking for life.
Or listening. I think
Yep.
I think reps ought to be watched plenty. And if I'm not up in Concord, I am on a trail somewhere, as you know.
Exactly.
Usually flat ones.
Now, also, I think you have a reserved seat in the House gallery.
I have a favorite seat.
Yes. She is always, you always can be seen up in the House gallery on Wednesdays, keeping track of what's going on in the House. And there's a lot to be checking on this term.
There's a lot to be checking on and a lot to listen to
Yep.
and to see what's happening.
Now, what on earth led you to get involved in politics and wanting to spend so much time in Concord in the first place?
Well, I can't remember a time when I wasn't interested. I'm one of those strange people who's born with that political inclination. And when I moved up here with my family, or with my husband, we'd only been married a short time. We've raised our family here. But I discovered that New Hampshire is very different from Florida, where I grew up. The capital's right there. The legislature's huge. Your neighbors are your legislators. You see them in the grocery store. You see them at the transfer station. I remember the town dump used to be the best place to campaign. And I found that for someone inclined to want to know about public policy, this was a gold mine. Going up and listening to what was happening in Concord was so easy and so available. Very, very open government, and I love that. And being pro-life, the two of those just work together.
Very now. How long have you been in New Hampshire?
Since September of 1982, so over 30 years now.
So you have seen a huge change in the demographics of New Hampshire politics.
I have.
Yes.
I have. Now, when I first moved up here, it was in September, and a guy named John Sununu was running for governor against the incumbent Hugh Gallen. And one of the first things I saw on TV was a debate between Sununu and Gallen. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that little guy's being so mean. Because, as you know, John Sununu takes no prisoners in debate. Well, I learned later that the policies he was promoting were the ones that made sense to me. And of course, he went on to win the election. But that was my first look at New Hampshire electoral politics, is you better be prepared when you're going up against someone in a debate about public policy, because in New Hampshire, we expect you to know what you're doing.
Exactly. Now, can you remember the first campaign you worked on?
The first campaign I actually worked on, believe it or not, was not until, well, aside from local campaigns, was not until Pat Buchanan in 1992. I remember because I had a little one in August of 91, and I had her in a little carrier next to me while I was making phone calls up at the office in Manchester. And that's what got me accustomed to the nuts and bolts of grassroots campaigning, the phone calls you make, the door-to-doors, handing out literature, all of the contact that goes into a New Hampshire campaign. Because for all that we hate phone calls, I hate getting them. Why do campaigns keep doing them? Because enough contact and conversations get made that it turns out to be worth it.
What was the first local?
The first local, I cannot even remember a time when I wasn't involved in local. I remember when I moved up here, there was an executive council race. Again, this was election season that we moved up here, and I was living with my in-laws in Nashua on Fairmount Street, and one day my mother-in-law walked me down to the end of the street where there was a tannery where pollution was a serious problem. It was a Superfund site, and a young man named Jim Donchis was challenging Bernie Streeter for executive council. And Donchis, of course, later became an office holder in his own right, and is still very active in public in New Hampshire. But that was it. It was down the street. Things were happening right there, and that was something else about it was just another way of telling me New Hampshire is an excellent place to be.
Oh, yeah.
And we were up there because we moved up because this is where the jobs were. This was when high tech was very much the backbone of the economy. Young families like ours came up. Times have changed. We've been through some shifts. We're in the middle of shifting times now. But New Hampshire's come through. New Hampshire adapts. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, that's what brought us to New Hampshire as well. My husband's job transferred up here. That job kind of got a little squirrely, and fortunately he was able to jump ship and was hired by BAE Systems. And fortunately he's been gainfully employed with BAE since then.
I think everybody who's lived in New Hampshire for more than 10 years understands how squirrely the economy can be and how many shifts can happen, which means I need to watch what goes on in Concord, because I want to make sure whoever's voting on things like spending understands it hits people whose jobs might not be there in a year.
Exactly. And they say that if you live in New Hampshire long enough, you either know or related to a state rep. Yes. And I think you can also add, you also know a BAE employee.
I have been on hiking trips of, it can be day trips, it can be several trips, and I will meet people. It's like, oh, I know you. Aren't you a state rep? Here you are in your hiking kit. But yeah.
Now, what is the one thing that you do not like about campaigning?
I hate phone calls.
Yeah,
I hate them.
I think that's everyone's least favorite.
I hate them. I will do the last campaign I worked full-time on was in 2012. And I would do anything short of making phone calls. I was working for a party, and I would literally make a drive around the state to hit all the field offices and deliver goods to the field reps and meet the volunteers, rather than do 10 minutes worth of phone calls.
Now, what is your favorite thing to do?
My favorite thing to do is to put on one little thing. It can be a little emblem, it can be a t-shirt, and go to the county fairs.
There you go.
There are some each of the parties have local groups that can be you meet wonderful people there. But what I like is going to a place where it's not a party-oriented thing, and just walk around, and especially talk to the vendors, because those are the small business people.
Right.
That's time tremendously well spent. And my favorite thing about the campaigns I've worked on is that I have had statewide work to do, and I love this state. I love all of its. I find trails everywhere, but the people that I've met have been wonderful.
Yeah, my two campaigns, I went to the Hillsborough County Fair and volunteered there in the Republican booth. And not that I would have there wasn't a lot of Merrimack people going out to the Hillsborough County Fair. I mean, that's such a long drive over to
New Boston.
I mean, shudder. But the people you met was just so much fun. And walking around talking to the vendors.
Oh, if you haven't been to the Lancaster Fair, you haven't lived.
No, I haven't been to that one. Yeah, that was definitely out of my district.
Yeah.
But yeah, the county fairs are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
With politics. Now, I know you've said that you like to go hiking, and
Yep.
I know that firsthand because we've gone hiking together. How do you work hiking in the campaign trail?
Always keep a pair of boots and sneakers in the trunk of the car, always. And I always keep a couple of my favorite books about the state. One of them is on rail trails,
Yep.
and another one is just a general New Hampshire trail book. And if I know that I've got to be up in, got to head over to the Dover and Wolfboro offices, it's like if I can fit even half an hour, get my head away from the craziness of a campaign and just walk for a while in a park, in one of the state forests, up to one of the fire towers, down one of the rail trails, all of which have tremendous stories behind them. It's a good thing.
Oh yeah, very good.
So yeah, you don't clear that with the front office. You don't add any miles. You simply look at where you're going to be for the day. You look where the trails are. Boots are in the back. You do it.
There you go. And it's nothing like going out on a hike or a bike ride on a trail.
You got to get your head straight.
Clear the cobwebs
Yeah.
from the head.
And campaigns are not designed to keep you on an even keel. So
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now, if you could pick any president, past or even people who are there's rumors about now, whose campaign would you want to work on? Any president?
any president.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, it would be very interesting to work for James Madison. I would love to just pick his brain and be by his side, but he had such an important role in the Bill of Rights, but also as a personality he was a Virginia boy, and yet in the course of developing things he had to work with the Massachusetts boys, and there were differences in temperament as well as policy. How did he do that? He made it work, and he was president during the War of 1812, a tremendous challenge. He's the kind of guy I think I could learn from. And for candidates now, there's a handful that just fascinate me. But
can you imagine James Madison having at his disposal what candidates today have?
They had to settle for broadsides then, with just mass printing. It would be something. And you think of things like, well, James Madison was little 5'4" guy. Is that telegenic enough for campaigning? That sort of thing didn't matter so much back then.
Yep.
It didn't matter that what your appearance was so much as what your policies were.
Exactly. And it seems appearance matters more with female candidates.
Oh, you bet.
Than male candidates.
You bet.
Yes. Now I can remember a Republican class that I was taking. I was running for office for the first time.
Okay.
And you weren't allowed to be in office to take this course. So I was on the fringe because I was running for office, and I was the only person that had done that. And one of our classes was on appearance, hair, your
Now,
clothes.
did they say anything about the jacket?
Don't you love this jacket? My anything goes jacket.
Your Here I Am, I'm a Lenette jacket. It's if you're running.
But this woman, she was a retired stewardess, if I can remember correctly. And she had all her body armor and all this stuff laid out on things that we should and shouldn't wear. And one of the first things she said, she looked out at us and she said, ladies, if any of you let your hair down, you best be bold and brave. Oh, I stood right up and laughed, and I said, well, I am bold and brave. Yeah. Bring it on. And why do women have to color their hair to be taken seriously?
Oh, and I recall when Governor Palin was selected to be, when Senator McCain chose her to be the running mate, there was a wardrobe purchased, and there was some concern about the cost of the wardrobe. And I thought, okay, you're coming out of a town in Alaska, and you're being put in a spot where you are running nationally for office, and what are you supposed to do? If that had been a man, I don't think anyone would have noticed.
No, exactly. And I can remember when Senator Ayotte was running for office, one of her a few of her campaign people were working at this class that I was taking, and one of them said that at one point there was a question and answer, and someone commented on some gray hairs that the senator had, and she quickly sent a text to this young lady and said, "Schedule me for a hair appointment." Why should that matter?
You know, it depends on the person. It depends on the office. At this point in my life, and I'm some years older than Senator Ayotte, it's like, this is who I am. Mm-hmm. I'd be happy to serve. If I were running for office, my attitude would be, look, I'm happy to serve. Let's talk about it. But the hair comes with it.
My hair stood out at the House. In my first term, I was in the last row of Reps Hall.
I remember.
Right in the middle of the back row, and the cameras shot over my head. But you could always see my head on WMUR News. Mm-hmm. And my daughters would say, if they caught the news, yep, you were in attendance. Mm-hmm. Stands out. Badge of courage.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you like James Madison. Mm-hmm. Now, we're not going to get it. We're going to just assume. We're going to assume you're a Republican. Because I don't know. I know you're an independent. Mm-hmm. Is there a Republican president you wouldn't want to work on a campaign? I'm going to throw that one out.
Wouldn't want to work on a campaign.
Yeah, wouldn't want to work on his campaign. I'm going to say his because we haven't
yet had a female.
Right.
And I'm not laying any bets on which party will be first with that. I'll tell you, when I was a kid and first becoming conscious of politics, Richard Nixon struck me as a man who truly did not like some of the people he was elected to represent. And when I look back, I'm thinking, there are things that staff can do, and there are things that staff can't do. But there's no way a staff can sell a candidate to people who know they're not liked.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot of things I can do to help a candidate, but I cannot help a candidate be something he isn't, not for long. I can do a whole lot of stuff, but I can't do that.
There you go. What else do you do for fun on the campaign trail?
Oh gosh, a lot of it depends on what the task is that day. I like going to the field offices and meeting the people who come in, because in every campaign there's a mixture of veterans, some of whom are very young, but they're political veterans, and people who are coming out for the first time. And I love hearing from them, hearing their stories, what got them interested, why they're coming out. One of the most gratifying things about the 2012 campaign, where a number of the candidates that I supported did not do well, is some of the people I worked with who were volunteers for the first time came out and ran for office themselves in 2014 and are now serving in Concord. So meeting people, finding out their stories, that's one of the things I like. And seeing parts of New Hampshire I haven't seen before is good too.
And that's the beauty of New Hampshire. Anyone can run for office in New Hampshire. That was a perfect example. I taught PE at a small Christian school. What on earth do I know about being a state rep?
You know that you know what it's like to find a home for your family. You know what it's like to look at schools. You know what it's like to pay bills and budget. Hello, you're perfect.
Exactly. But in other states, that's not what they look for. They want the professional candidate because that's what they're paying.
Well, I'll tell you, last year there was a bills on a similar topic were being heard in Concord, Boston, and Hartford simultaneously. And I was covering this bill very much in Concord, and I wanted to know what the other states did. So I spent a day in Boston for those hearings and a day in Hartford. And it's totally different when you're dealing with professionals, or when professional politicians know they're dealing with you. There's this veil that doesn't exist in New Hampshire. It really made me appreciate it. And I don't have to walk through a metal detector in New Hampshire. It's very much the people's house.
Yeah.
So for all the dignity of and beauty of those buildings, I came back and thought there's no place like home.
Yeah, we had a gentleman come to Judiciary from Massachusetts in a wheelchair to speak on a bill. And he took a bus. And in Concord, he had to cross a bridge to get to the State House in his wheelchair. There was snow on the ground.
Yes, Concord's sidewalks are...
Yeah. And he came, and I met him at lunch. And I talked to him. I told him what Judiciary would be like, and I told him he'd have to fill out a pink card, and he had an assistant there. And told him what the layout was going to be. He got up to the committee hearing, and he spoke in committee. I received a letter from him through the Honorable Nancy Elliott. She was one of the
One of the supporters of the bill, I remember.
Yes, exactly. And he wrote this letter to a nationwide newsletter for disabled people. And he said that if he had the chance, he would move to New Hampshire. And he told about taking this bus to go up to speak to the Judiciary Committee. And he said they sat in attendance. Everyone paid attention. It was a full committee room. They asked educated questions. They listened to his answers and his testimony. He said when he had testified in Massachusetts, he had to go through the same routine, take a bus, go from the bus station in his wheelchair on the side of the road with snow. He got to the committee hearing. It was canceled. No one showed up. The committee members didn't have the audacity to show up for the hearing that was scheduled.
I went to that hearing in Massachusetts, and most of the committee was not there.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the first things that gentleman did was take them to task for having a hearing on a bill involving rights for the disabled, and not have the sidewalks cleared so people with mobility impairments could get in.
Exactly, and then not showing up. And so I read the letter to the committee about a week later or so when I got it. And
you can be very proud of New Hampshire for that, because I think anyone who comes in from out of state, knowing how other states do it, and then see New Hampshire, whatever you think of New Hampshire politicians and politics, there's an openness here that is not typical.
Right. Now I've gone through to conventions and meetings throughout the country, and introduced myself to different state reps and state senators that and the joke is always, well, you guys make nothing for money. And I said, exactly. I said, we're not raping our constituents. We're not getting rich of our constituents. We're serving because we want to serve.
Yeah.
And the conversation all of a sudden ceases, and they sheepishly
It's
slink
simply
away.
a different way of looking at government.
Exactly. And there's one state rep from California, we were talking, and he laughed and he thought it was hysterical, and I made that comment to him, and he says, well, how much do you really serve? And I said, excuse me. I said, New Hampshire state reps, our constituents, was it 2,000?
I think it's 2,500.
Just about 2,500. I said, how many constituents do you have? And he had over 1 million constituents. I said, who do you think is in more contact with their constituents? You or I?
Yeah.
And
you
I said,
have to face this.
Exactly. And I said, who's actually earning, are you actually earning that salary? I said, I've earned all of my $200.
And New Hampshire has it at every level, not just state,
Exactly.
but county and town level. There are so many opportunities to serve that eventually you're going to take your turn.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so neat going to, like this past Saturday, I was at a vineyard in Hollis, and I saw my county commissioner, I saw my county attorney, I saw my state senator there.
You posted pictures, thank you very much.
I saw, 2 of my state reps were there at one event. That was so cool.
And this is something else that's typical of New Hampshire, particularly first in the nation, which I hope we preserve forever. A free event from someone wanting to run for office, open to the public.
Exactly. I brought my oldest daughter, and she was ecstatic. Now, my girls helped me with my campaign. My youngest was an intern for Rick Santorum, so she had a taste of of what goes on. My oldest was away at Bible college, so this was one of the first big events that she had gone to. And she actually got her picture taken with the candidate, got to actually talk to the candidate.
It's not like being dropped in the middle of a football field. No, you are in an event with these people, and over the next year, there's just going to be an amazing number of opportunities for New Hampshire people to ask questions.
Right. And I told her, I said, get that picture on your Facebook page. Let people see.
See, I've done this for 30 years, and I've never managed to get my picture with a candidate. And my husband is now saying, I have no proof that you've ever actually worked a campaign. But
you need to go to an event with me. My daughter was aghast. I said, okay, you stand right beside me, and you listen to my every word. I said, just follow me. So as soon as the event was over, I said, I blew it. We're in the wrong spot. I said, follow me. And we kind of went through the crowd. She said, Mom, Mom, stop. Mom. I said, shh, follow me. And she's like, Mom, manners.
Woman
I said,
on a mission.
no, follow me. And we get up front, and I spoke to this one gentleman. I said, hey, my daughter wants a picture. Oh, get right here. I said, okay. And we kind of eased our way in, didn't push or shove anyone, just casually easing our way between people.
Always casual.
Yes. Got her up to the front, and just as the Senator Rand Paul was leaving, I said, excuse me, Senator, could my daughter get a picture with you? Of course. smiled at her, shook her hand. They stood together, got the picture.
And he did 6 events over those 2 days. So.
Exactly. And as we were walking out to the car, I said, okay, here's the deal, girl. I said, do you want to go to another event? She goes, yeah, that was so cool. I said, okay, when it gets down to a picture, do you want another picture taken? Of course. From now on, listen to your mother. Don't talk. Get on my shoulder and just follow behind and listen to my commands. I said, you want a picture? You got to be bold. If you sit back and play with your manners and
That's
just
true.
be polite, you're not going to get the picture.
I'm just not pushy enough. That's always been
It's
my
not
problem.
pushy. I didn't shove anyone out of the way. I didn't push anyone out of the way. I had a mission. I was at the starting line. I saw the finish line. There's always a score sheet. I was going to be up there.
Well,
We made
very
it up
few
there.
states give you the chance to have
Exactly.
face-to-face conversations with people who want to be president, as New Hampshire.
If you want your picture taken, go to an event with me. I can remember on one of my trips to Turkey, Representative Al Baldessaro and I were sitting at the same table. And the assistant to the prime minister was talking. I said, Al, I want your picture taken. How are we going to do this? Follow me. Pretend you know what you're doing. What? Follow me.
Act
pretend
like a
you know
Marine, Al.
No, pretend you know what you're doing. We went right up the podium with everyone else, up the stairs to the stage, went over, got in line, and he speaks English. And I nudged Al. He goes, oh, I got the camera. He shook his hand. They're talking. Ex-Marine, I'm taking pictures. I hand Al my camera. Shook his hand, got my picture taken. We went back to our table. I showed the Turks that were our tour guides the pictures. How did you do that? He's the second in command in the country. We knew what we were doing.
You came from New Hampshire.
Exactly.
You came from
You
New
want a
Hampshire.
picture, you got to be a little bold, a little brave. Act like you know what you're doing. Well, has been a pleasure talking with you. Our time is almost over. This show will be posted on Facebook, and I'm on YouTube now. I have my first 2 episodes on YouTube. And hey, Josh Moore, I know you're jealous. You don't know how to do that yet. That's why I'm the master. Anyhow, thank you for watching the show. Be watching next week. I always have an exciting guest. We like looking at the lighter side of politics.
Oh, yes.
Find the fun that you folks can have also. So I thank you again for watching. God bless. Have a good night, and I'll see you next week on Late Night with Lenette.